Okay, when you think of a penguin, what's the very first thing that pops into your head? I'm gonna bet it's a bird in a little tuxedo, maybe waddling across this huge empty field of ice. But what if I told you that picture, as iconic as it is just one tiny piece of a way bigger and, frankly, much more surprising story? Today, we're gonna go way beyond the ice and get to know the real penguin.
So, let's just try a quick thought experiment. Go ahead, right now, picture a penguin. What do you see? Where is it? Just kind of hold that image in your mind for a second.
So, was it something like this? A lone figure, looking all formal in its black and white feathers, standing on an endless sheet of ice and snow? Yeah, for most of us, that's the go-to image. But that's where our story really begins, because that's only a tiny part of a much bigger, much more fascinating world. Here's our game plan. We're going to journey way beyond that icy stereotype. We'll explore where these birds actually live. Then we'll look at how they're perfectly designed for survival. After that, we'll dive into their surprisingly complex social lives. And finally, we'll see why their fate is so connected to the health of our own planet. So let's start by shattering that biggest myth of all. First up, we are tackling that big misconception head on. The idea that all penguins are stuck at the South Pole.
Now, it's absolutely true that a lot of penguins call Antarctica home, but the idea that they only live in icy places? Nope, that's a complete myth.
The reality is, penguins are spread all across the southern hemisphere. You can find them hanging out on the coasts of South America, South Africa, even Australia and New Zealand. And, get this, the Galapagos penguin lives right near the equator. I mean, a penguin at the equator. It's an incredible story of adaptation.
So that begs the question, right? How does a single type of bird manage to thrive in such different environments, from frozen wastelands to tropical islands? Well, it all comes down to their amazing design for survival.
And the diversity within the penguin family is just wild. On one end of the scale, you've got the tiny little blue penguin standing at only about 30 centimeters tall. And on the complete other end, you have the magnificent emperor penguin, which can be 4 times taller and weigh up to a massive 45 kilograms. So, what's their secret? They basically come with a built-in survival kit. First, they've got a thick layer of fat, or blubber, to keep them warm. Then they have this coat of super dense, waterproof feathers. Their wings, over millions of years, turned into these powerful flippers that let them literally fly through the water. And unlike birds that fly in the air, their bones are solid and heavy, which helps them dive deep. And their performance in the water, it's just incredible. Some species can hit speeds of up to 35 kilometers an hour. But when it comes to diving, the emperor penguin is in a whole other league. It can plunge to depths of over 500 meters looking for food. To put that in perspective, that's deeper than the Empire State Building is tall. And for those penguins that do live in the extreme cold, they've got a couple of extra tricks up their sleeve. They have a special circulatory system that keeps their feet and flippers from losing too much heat. And of course, there's the famous huddle, where thousands of them press together to share body heat and survive those brutal polar winters. You know, these physical adaptations are just amazing, but they're only half the story. A penguin is rarely a solo act. Let's dive into their surprisingly busy social world. So, what fuels these incredible aquatic athletes? Well, their whole diet comes straight from the sea. They mostly eat krill, which are these tiny little crustaceans, but they also hunt for fish and squid during those super fast, deep dives. Penguins are incredibly social animals. They're constantly communicating using this really complex language of specific calls and body movements. And this is absolutely essential for finding their mate or their own chick in the middle of a noisy colony that could have tens of thousands of other birds. Their entire life cycle is basically one big cooperative effort. They all gather together in these huge colonies to breed. They'll lay 1 or 2 eggs, and then the parents usually take turns keeping the egg warm. Once the chicks hatch, both parents work around the clock to feed and protect them. And this leads us to one of the most extreme examples of parenting in the entire animal kingdom. The male emperor penguin stands through the whole brutal Antarctic winter. We're talking 2 months of total darkness and hurricane-force winds, all while balancing one single precious egg on his feet to keep it off the ice. It's just an unbelievable feat of endurance. This incredible resilience and unique lifestyle, it makes the penguin so much more than just a fascinating bird. It makes them a vital messenger for the health of our entire planet. Scientists have a word for this, a bioindicator. But really, what it means is simple. You can think of penguins as a checkup for the ocean. If the penguins are healthy and their populations are stable, it's a good sign the whole marine ecosystem is doing pretty well. But if the penguins are in trouble, that's a massive warning sign for everyone.
So you have this really stark contrast. On the one hand, penguins play this vital role in the ecosystem, regulating fish and krill populations. But on the other hand, they're facing these huge threats from human activities, things like overfishing, habitat loss, and of course climate change and pollution.
And these threats are very, very real. Climate change is literally melting the sea ice that many species need for breeding and finding food. Pollution, especially from things like oil spills, can be catastrophic. And industrial overfishing of their main food sources means they're having to compete for every meal.
But it's not all doom and gloom. There is hope. People are taking action. Conservation groups are fighting to create protected marine areas. Scientists are out there monitoring the impacts of climate change, and there are global efforts to try and reduce the pollution that's ending up in our oceans.
So, as we've seen, the penguin is so much more than that simple image we started with. That one bird on a patch of ice. It's a dynamic, diverse, and incredibly resilient survivor.
And it's not just one kind of bird. There are about 18 different species of penguin, and each one is uniquely adapted to its own little corner of the world, from the ice shelves of Antarctica all the way to the volcanic shores of the Galapagos. And that brings us to the final, really crucial thought. Since the penguin is such a clear indicator of the ocean's health, its story is deeply, deeply connected to our own. So the real question we're left with is this: what does the penguin's future tell us about our own?